During World War II, thousands of saboteurs and scouts were sent to the rear of the enemy, but the specifics of their work were such that many of their exploits were classified or simply remained unknown. In addition, in the organization of underground groups and partisan detachments were distinguished not only cadre scouts, but also ordinary locals who went into the forests on their own initiative. It was thanks to the selflessness of various citizens of the Soviet Union that the victory over the most formidable army of that time became possible. One of such heroes was Stanislav Alekseevich Vaupshasov. Even before the beginning of the Civil War, he joined the Red Army and quickly proved himself. The talented young man was quickly noticed by the command, and at the age of 21, Stanislav Alekseevich began his way of a scout. He received his first assignment in western Belorussia, occupied by Polish troops. In Moscow did not give up hope to return, lost in the hardest years for Russia, so in the lands of western Ukraine and Belarus was conducted so-called active intelligence, the creation of underground organizations and partisan detachments. This is what the young scout was engaged in from 1920 to 1925. The command quickly and very highly appreciated the results of his work, awarding Vaupshasov a personal weapon and the Order of the Red Banner. After the Civil War, Stanislav Vaupshasov spent almost 10 years in the army as an economic officer, which was probably just a cover, because in 1937 he was sent to Spain to lead the 14th Republican Partisan Corps. The experience of leading large units and conducting large-scale sabotage, gained in Spain, was very useful to him at the beginning of the war with Germany. At the beginning of 1942, Stanislav Alekseevich was thrown near Minsk, where he organized a partisan detachment local, which would become a real nightmare for the invaders. For 2 years the partisan detachment and other subversive groups subordinated to Vaupshasov killed 14,000 German soldiers. One of the most famous sabotage of the locals was the bombing of the canteen, where the explosion killed almost 50 high-ranking German officers. In addition, Vaupshasov also led the liquidation of the Gauleiter of Belarus, Wilhelm Kuba. For these and many other feats, in November 1944, Stanislav Vaupshasov was presented to the title of Hero of the USSR. He went through the whole war and died at the age of 77 in Moscow. A truly unequal battle was fought by Vladimir Alexandrovich Molodtsov's subversive guerrilla detachment, which consisted of less than 100 people. In the summer of 1941 they were driven into the catacombs of Odessa, but the catacombs turned out to be not a trap, as the Germans assumed, but a real salvation. Using a multi-kilometer network of underground passages, the saboteurs kept almost 16,000 German soldiers in fear for several months. For more than half a year, the Germans tried to blow them up, poison them with gases, and ambush the squad. But the Germans managed to catch Molodtsov and his men only after the betrayal of one of their fighters. On February 9, 1942, the commander and several men from the partisan detachment were arrested at the safe house. Molodtsov bravely endured all the tortures and did not betray any of his own men. For the first time he spoke only on May 29, 1942, after the announcement of the death sentence. On the proposal to submit a request for pardon, he replied, "We in our land do not ask pardon from our enemies." Shot on July 12, 1942 in Odessa. The place of burial is unknown. The symbolic grave is located on the Odessa Walk of Fame. By the decree of the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet of the USSR on November 5, 1944, for the heroic deed shown in the performance of special tasks behind enemy lines, Captain of State Security Molodtsov Vladimir Alexandrovich was awarded the title of Hero of the Soviet Union posthumously. The fate of the scout Ivan Danilovich Kudrya was no less heroic. He was born near Kiev and met the war there. Until 1941, Kudrya was engaged in the development of counter-revolutionaries. It was this that helped the captain to organize the underground in the first days after the capture of Kiev. The Germans simply did not expect that the hunt for them in the city would begin 3 days after the occupation. Only for the first month the detachment Avengers, under the leadership of Ivan Kudrya, killed more than 400 Germans. But the main purpose of the squad was information. Everyone who was familiar with the scout noted that Kudrya had simply phenomenal charisma and persuasiveness. Thanks to this, he managed to recruit into the Kiev underground as many representatives of the local intelligentsia, such as Opera Diva Risa Okipnaya and Rio bandits. One of the most valuable sources of information was Taras Semyonovich. He was one of those Petli Uravites, whom Kudrya repeatedly detained. With the beginning of the occupation, Semyonovich defected to the Germans and began to work in the Gestapo, but Ivan Danilovich managed to convert him in just one meeting. The heroic scout was always on the edge of the attack and personally participated in all operations, and this despite the fact that the Germans announced a real hunt for him. As a result, in November 1942, as a result of betrayal, Kudrya was captured and executed by the Gestapo. However, no torture could not break his spirit, and the Avengers continued their intelligence activities. In 1965, Ivan Kudrya was awarded the title of Hero of the Soviet Union posthumously. Kudrya was closely associated with the partisan detachment Hunters, operating in the Kiev suburbs under the leadership of Nikolai Prokopyuk. Hunters gave the Germans a headache no less than the Avengers. In connection with their elimination was sent to a detachment of Punishers, who managed to surround the guerrillas. But the fighters responded to offers to surrender with a categorical refusal. Under the leadership of their commander, they fought more than 300 kilometers, breaking out of the encirclement. For this feat, Prokopyuk was also awarded the title of Hero of the Soviet Union. Not far from the Hunters, acted in another heroic detachment of partisans, led by Scout Viktor Alexandrovich Lyagin. He, unfortunately, failed to escape from another German trap, but the commander withstood all the tortures and did not surrender his own, for which he was awarded the Hero's Star. The real prototype of Sturlitz from the famous movie can be considered Nikolai Ivanovich Kuznetsov, a native of Lvov region. The young years of the future spy were hard enough. His father was from prosperous peasants, so the unenviable origin prevented him from getting a decent education. Despite this, he successfully studied foreign languages Polish and Komi, and in German could speak 6 dialects at once. Origin and wrong interest repeatedly attracted to Kuznetsov the attention of law enforcement agencies. As a result, he was sent to the Perm region. However, there, on his own initiative, he uncovered the financial frauds of forest planners, which attracted positive attention to him, and soon he was already involved in the capture of criminal gangs. The talented polyglot was quickly noticed and attracted to agent work. Until 1941, Kuznetsov was engaged in recruiting foreign politicians and businessmen coming to Moscow. But in full measure, all the abilities of the scout revealed with the outbreak of war. In the summer of 1942, he and a group of other scouts were thrown into the city of Rivne, where the Germans organized the Reichskommissariat of Ukraine. Almost immediately, Kuznetsov managed to join the ranks of German soldiers under the guise of a German secret police officer, Paul Siebert. For almost 2 years, Siebert Kuznetsov conducted intelligence work, but his main task was the elimination of high-ranking officers and officials. Thus, his main target was the Gauleiter of Ukraine, Erich Koch. The Soviet spy repeatedly organized attempts on his life, but Koch each time managed to avoid death. During the hunt for the Gauleiter, Kuznetsov personally eliminated 11 German generals, extracted secret information, including the location of Hitler's base Werwolf. But Koch could not get to Koch. Despite the failure of the main task, the NKVD leadership considered Kuznetsov one of the best and most effective agents. And by 1944 every German knew Kuznetsov's signs, so the scout was ordered to leave the city and make his way across the front line, or join some partisan group. Escape went without problems, but to reach their own Kuznetsov was not destined. Moving eastward, a group of scouts came to a small village occupied by Soviet soldiers. Nikolai Ivanovich decided that these were the advanced units of the Red Army, but in fact it was a disguised unit of the Ukrainian insurgent army, which the Germans had managed to inform about the retreating scouts. Kuznetsov's group realized their mistake too late and died in an unequal battle. By the decree of the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet of the USSR on November 5, 1944, Nikolai Ivanovich Kuznetsov was posthumously awarded the title of Hero of the Soviet Union for exceptional courage and bravery in carrying out the tasks of the command.